Hello and welcome to our January 4th, 2020 episode of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas, and congratulations to the 2020 NFC East champion New York Football. Oh, no. The Eagles pulled Jalen Hurts. They lost the game, and the NFC East championship will go through Washington, D.C. How do you like that, Mike?
I don't. It makes me feel a little bit better that your first statement on this podcast in 2021 was incorrect because you said it's January 4th, 2020. It is not January 4th, 2020. It's January 4th, 2021. And that mistake it does make me feel a little better knowing that even someone who values himself as highly as yourself can fall off the pedestal for even a slight moment. But let me just tell you, last night was the most gut-wrenching game I've ever watched in my entire life. And it even – including Giants games, it had nothing to do with my team. And before I'll let you hop in once. I'll let you hop in 1 second. I've been through Deshaun Jackson's punt return touchdown at the buzzer. I've been through walk-off hits. Those suck, but you can blame yourself. You'd be like, all right, the Giants didn't tackle. Matt Dodge should never have punted the ball inbounds to Deshaun Jackson. Last night, you were sitting there helpless. And Nate Sudfeld is the worst quarterback I have ever seen play. And I think the fact that Doug Peterson made the entire country watch an entire quarter of Nate Sudfeld play quarterback is almost cruel and unusual torture, even more so than having them throw the game and making the Giants miss the playoffs. Philadelphia, it's not always sunny there. Cheesesteaks are overrated. The Liberty Bell is ugly. UPenn's campus is the worst of all the Ivy League schools. I could slander Philadelphia for days, Frank. I'll take the high road and just say I will never forgive Doug Peterson for this, ever. I don't care what excuse he tries to throw out there, whether or not that was the plan going into the game. I don't give a flying crap. Doug Peterson's dead to me. I want to beat the Eagles by 95 points every time for the next decade. I don't usually get mad like this, but I start trembling thinking about it. And screw screw the Eagles. I'm so sick and tired of Philly people thinking like, oh, this was the right play. You suck. Philly sucks. The best part about being in Philly is getting to leave Philadelphia and move to New Jersey, which is where the New York Giants play. So Philly, you suck. It's not always sunny. Cheesesteaks aren't even good. And you got the 6th pick. Big whoopty freaking do.
Here's what you're missing. The Giants finished 6-10.
Wait, before I got it. I knew you were going to go there. The Redskins were 7-9.
Who?
The Washington football team was 7-9.
Okay.
Listen, you can say the Giants only had 6 wins, win more. Well, it's not like they got cheated out of a division by a team that won, 10 games. They had a losing record. The team that won the division still had a losing record. So don't give me that they only had 6 wins factor. Washington had 6 wins and then was given a 7th win by a fluky tank job on national TV.
All right, you're 6-10. All right, but you put moral of the story though, you're 6-10. You shouldn't even. The fact that you're even sniffing the playoffs ahead of this game is just a referendum on the whole thing.
I agree.
But don't sit there and act like you were stripped of something that was rightfully yours and that you guys deserve to have, because that is blasphemous.
I'm not upset that we didn't make the playoffs had Washington beaten Philly in a straight-up fair game. If that happened, then I'd be like, all right, you know what? It wasn't meant to be. But to see Philadelphia come out there and blatantly throw the game on national TV in front of everybody's eyes, that's what hurts more than anything else. It was a deflating gut punch. And like I said, it's one thing if Washington won that game. It was 10-0. And if they were going to win, I wish they won 50-0. I don't have an issue with Washington winning. My issue is with Doug Peterson coming out after the game and saying, I coached that game to win, when you clearly did not. And it's not the Eagles, whatever, Doug Peterson's the one I'm holding responsible for this.
The one thing that doesn't make sense to me is you're Doug Peterson. We're supposedly going to continue as coach of the Eagles. There have been a bunch of coaches fired already in the past couple of days. Doug Peterson is not one of them. You need to evaluate Jalen Hurts. This is Jalen Hurts, fourth quarter,
yes,
team that's going to the playoffs. Show me that you can beat this team. And if they, and I was just watching Cowherd, if he wins that game, Eagles fans are like, wow, he just did this against that defense in the national television, knocked them out of the playoffs. That is a huge win.
Yes.
But
He tanked. It was a blatant tank, and that's the part that hurts, Frank. It's not that Washington won. Had Washington won a straight-up competitive game in any sort of fashion, bravo, Washington, you had a better season. You deserve to go to the playoffs. It's the fact that it was a blatant tank job in front of everybody's eyes that kills me. And I 100% agree with your point. If there's ever a time to evaluate a young quarterback, it's what can he do in nut crunching time? And that was nut crunching time, a 3-point game into the fourth quarter with, your playoff life isn't on the line, but their playoff life is. Hurts has looked very up and down in his 4 starts. He's looked great at times. He did not play great yesterday. And I just don't understand, however you want to spin it, however you want to figure out, is Sudfeld our backup? Well, before you figure out if he's the backup, figure out who your starter is moving forward. Carson Wentz said this week that the relationship between him and Peterson's completely fractured beyond repair. So take him out of the equation. All right, well, unless Jalen Hurts is not your guy, and guess what? You drafted him in the 2nd round last year. I don't understand the move. He could have tried to explain it any way he wants. It's a complete bogus lie. And Doug Peterson cheated the Giants out of a chance to make the playoffs.
Out of a chance to get killed by the Buccaneers by 30 next week is what he ended. And moral of the story, that's what it was. So, all right.
Agree. And in the grand scheme of things, the Giants get the 11th pick. They still have a chance to get Devonta Smith. I believe he'll be there at 11, or Kyle Pitts. One of those two will be there at 11. And in the long run, it's probably a good thing. It felt like a disheartening gut punch beyond belief to watch what happened unfold in front of our eyes last night.
It would have been even better, though. Obviously not for you, but if that was the Cowboys. Because to have Stephen A on the next morning just going berserk over, that's what I live for. Is as much as there are as many Giants fans as there are in the world, there's probably 8 times the amount of Cowboys fans, and to see them have to go through that would have been even funnier. But all right, putting that to bed. All right, so Washington had become the 2nd team ever to start 2-6 and make the playoffs, joining the 1970 Bengals. Giants, they could have gotten a top 10 pick, could have picked as high as 3, but now they got the 11th pick while Dallas gets the 10th pick. But I just want to address something real quick before we move on from the Giants. You're tweeting. It was almost like during the Giants game that you wanted them to blow the game. It was you. I mean, talk about jinxing a team. So at halftime, you go, the Cowboys don't belong in the same field as the Giants. The first half felt like a varsity team whooping a JV team. There's no way this tweet ages poorly either. The Giants were only up 20-9. Plenty of game to go. And
I technically tweeted that when it was 20-6. It was just before half.
Okay, whatever. 26-29, same thing. And then after Andy Dalton was picked in the end zone, I said what I said. I never for 1 second thought we would lose this game. And then the second later, Wayne Gallman runs for a first down and fumbles. And that would have been the moment of the century if – could you imagine if the Cowboys would have scooped that up and ran for a touchdown and won the game?
I would have lost my damn mind.
I was so praying that they ruled out the Cowboys recovered that ball, because that or returned it for a touchdown, because that would have been one of the most epic moments of not only of the year but of the 2020 to 2021. That would have been all time incredible. The Cowboys scooping that ball up, and then Washington loses to the Eagles and makes the playoffs. That would have been the cherry on top of just the crappiest division performance in the history of the league.
Can I give you a little insight on the Twitter there? I have living in Texas, there are a bunch of Cowboy fans that I interact with on a regular basis, and it's a straight up troll job at them.
Got it.
The reverse jinx was the fact that if the Giants lost, we got a better pick. So I was in a no lose situation regardless. I would have span it. And I don't know if you noticed, but I retweeted a few people who after the game came at me and be like, hey, look, the Cowboys have the 10th pick. Giants have the 11th. Who's the real winner now? Which would have been my exact defense had the Giants blown that game. But straight trolling and out there just for the interactions on Twitter with people. I would not have said this tweet will definitely not age poorly if I really truthfully didn't believe that the Giants were going to blow that lead at some point, which was inevitable.
I started cracking up in the Eagles game when after Nate Sudfeld threw that initial pick, Washington came right back with an interception, and the second play of the next drive, Sudfeld fumbled the snap. I just started cracking up because
it was the ugliest offensive fourth quarter ever. And then Alex Smith fumbled that snap, and it looked like Philly's defense was going to scoop and score, and the guy missed it, and then Smith recovered. Just an absolute sandstorm of poop.
And then on the punt, dude muffed the punt, and the Eagles almost had it too. It was just incredible. It was such theater. I live for these moments. These are the moments I live for when watching sports, by far, and there's nothing better than it. All right, on to the Jets. Adam Gase is out for 2 seasons, went 2-14. I said it after the initial press conference. As soon as the I thing happened in the initial press conference, I would have just fired him there, and it was all downhill from there. There was never any like bright spots or anything. And then listen, any Jets fan is like, yeah, we fired Adam Gase, like we did it, yes, but like, get over yourself. All right, Adam Gase, least charismatic coach in sports history. I can't think of anyone else in history of sports that, off the top of my head, that I look at him like, yeah, but that guy's leading us. Let's go. We got this. And he was just the least emotional guy I've ever seen in the history of sports. Bottom line, Jets cannot mess up the next hire. Listen, I can't look at a crystal ball and be like, oh, we hire that guy, must win success. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter because Woody Johnson is still running this team. And I saw a tweet that he's not even going to be involved in the process. Which is just the reason why I'm not a fan until Woody Johnson sells the team. Because, like, first of all, you leave the organization, right? Give it to my little brother who hasn't been involved in this process forever. And like, you run the team. I'm going to England to do something for the president. And then he comes back and like, yeah, I don't care who we hire. Just let me know when it happens. I mean, talk about pathetic ownership. That is a joke. That is a travesty. And the diehard Jets fans out there, the ones that are still on board with the team, I pray for you. I mean, if that's how your owner is going to behave, there's never going to be any hope. So that's very frustrating, and the whole situation is it's upsetting because they deserve better.
So who do you want as the next Jets head coach?
I don't know. I mean, listen.
Give me your top 3.
I mean, I want someone who you can hire, who's got some sort of reputation here, who's charismatic, who can breed confidence and inspire people. And honestly, like Bill Cowher would be like fascinating, just like a guy who's got a Super Bowl track record, who can inspire a locker room and won't act as a repellent for star players like Adam Gase was. Literally ran every star player we had out of the building, whether it was Jamal Adams, Le'Veon Bell. I mean, those are just the 2 that come up right off the top of my head instantly. He traded all the guys. I mean, like, stop running our good players out of the building. Like, make them want to stay. Make them want to be part of something here. So he'd be near the top of the list. Joe Brady, everyone seems to be really, really high on. I know he was great at LSU and great with Joe Burrow, but who knows? Brian Dable seems to be a really hot commodity at Buffalo. I don't really trust Eric Bieniemy because I think that's all Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to me. Eric Bieniemy, listen, he may have a big part of that team, but if you hire Eric Bieniemy, that Mahomes magic is not going to rub off on whatever team he coaches. That for me is blasphemous. Robert Saleh, people seem to be high on too. I wouldn't be like jumping out of my pants for him. And then Jim Harbaugh maybe, but it looks like he's staying at Michigan. So I guess my top 2 would be my top 3, I should say, Bill Cowher, Joe Brady, and Brian Dable. But in the grand scheme of things, as long as Woody Johnson's running the team, if you're someone looking to be a head coach of a team, I would not run to this organization. If your owner's not going to be a part of the process, what are you doing with your life?
Can I throw you my top 3?
Sure.
I like your qualifications. They can lead a team. Got a championship pedigree. And how about this? They have a connection with a certain player the Jets are very interested. Dabo Swinney would be the first call I make if I'm the New York Jets. And with the hopes that Trevor Lawrence will tell Jacksonville, I'm not playing in Jacksonville. I'm pulling an Eli Manning. I'm playing for Dabo Swinney, whether you like it or not, and comes to the Jets.
What would stop the Jaguars from hiring Dabo then?
Well, we're talking about the Jets here. If I was the Jaguars, I would also try and hire Dabo Swinney. Okay. But I'm just saying for the Jets. If not, the guy in college who I think would make a fantastic NFL head coach. Who do you think I'm going to say?
I don't care who you're going to say. None of these college guys ever translate. The only one that's ever had remote success was Jim Harbaugh. You can rattle off the names of 100 college coaches who try to make it never works. It never works. I don't care. I don't want a college guy. I'm out.
You just said no Brady. He has 1 year coaching in the NFL.
But he's not a quote-unquote college guy. Don't spin this.
I would say, listen, Matt Campbell from Iowa State is going to be a terrific coach in the NFL one day. And I like the Cowher take. I like Dabo from Buffalo, but I think the Jets have to swing. Like, they got to swing for the fences here and try and bring in somebody who can re-galvanize this franchise, because right now it has 1 heartbeat per minute.
Yeah, I mean, literally anyone other than Adam Gase. Someone that I could look at and listen to an interview where I'm like, makes me feel good. Not someone who just like want to shut the TV off, and I can't stand that. All right.
Bill O'Brien.
Quarterback situation for the Jets. So they're going to pick second in the draft. There's a lot of situations you could do. Honestly, like after watching Justin Fields against Clemson, I mean, how could you not watch that game and think that this guy is not poised to be a flat-out rock star in the NFL? 22-28, 385 yards, Sugar Bowl record, 6 touchdowns against the team that I didn't think they had any chance to beat. He gets rocked in the helmet, in the ribs, which has got to be one of the most painful hits you could ever take in a game. Comes back and just lights up Clemson, just completely outplayed Trevor Lawrence in every way possible, and leads Ohio State to a dominant 49-28 win. After that game, I'm like, give me Justin Fields. I mean, give me that gamer. Give me that baller. I mean, as much as like I think Sam Darnold is great, I don't think that he is talented enough to overcome the hecticness and the instability of the organization and just the lack of stability around him. I think Justin Fields has the ability to overcome that and to see him rise to the occasion on that stage. And we'll see what he does in the national title game. Listen, like if he beats Alabama, he might go number 1. If he goes there and beats the Crimson Tide and has a similar performance, you don't think there's any way?
Nope.
Well, then if he,
the Bama defense is not what you think it is. It's a bad Bama defense this year.
We'll see. Either way, Justin Fields really
what he did against Clemson was beyond impressive, and to come back from that hit and throw 3 more touchdowns afterwards, including that ball that traveled 61 yards in the air on the money to Chris Olave on the post, like that was beyond impressive. Lawrence was not the reason Clemson lost that game. Clemson's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, and their offensive play calling without their lead play caller who had COVID, which consisted of like 4 QB counters, which made no sense, and they only ran the ball at Travis Etienne 10 times. Like their play calling was abysmal. Lawrence was not as good as Fields, but he was not the reason they lost that game by any means.
But sorry, so you mentioned the running game. They were playing from behind the whole game. So when you fall behind like that, I mean, you sort of just take your game plan, throw it out the window, and you're playing catch up the whole game. So
I understand, but you have Travis Etienne, who was a Heisman finalist last year, the all-time leading rusher and scorer in ACC history, and he gets 10 carries, and Trevor Lawrence had 7. Like that play, and they tried the QB counter play like 4 times just to prove that it would work once, and guess what? It never worked. So yeah, I don't think Lawrence is to be looked at in that game and held any. I mean, he made a bunch of really good throws under duress, so it wasn't his best game, but by no means did he play bad.
You could say I have like PTSD, but like seeing how he struggled with like when things weren't going optimally, that like left a real. I mean, I listened to just had the first pick. I probably just speaking a different tune, but like to see him struggle when things aren't going optimally for him was like holy crap. Like think that like that's going to be the story of his Jets career. Like things go wrong and he just crumbles.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but go back and watch the last 2 games Ohio State played before.
I know. Listen,
it's on a game-to-game basis. But yeah, if I'm the Jets, I'm taking a quarterback because you've seen Sam Darnold for 3 years. Unless you still believe that Darnold's ceiling is higher than any of these guys, you take a quarterback because A, he's younger, he's under the rookie contract for 3 more years, and you have a new head coach. Tie him in with the quarterback. Whoever you hire, if you keep Darnold's not his guy. And we've seen 9 out of 10 times, maybe 9.5 out of 10 times when that new coach comes in, he wants his guy for his offense. You know, Kyle Shanahan got it with Jimmy G, and that's had mixed results, but that wasn't his guy he drafted. That was a guy he had to bring in. And we're going to talk about quarterbacks in a sec, Frank. We got some fun quarterback scenarios to break down. We should do that next, by the way. But if you get a new head coach, the second pick in the draft, you don't want to be picking that high again. This is a class loaded with QB talent. I think you got to take a QB, and I haven't seen enough of Zach Wilson to evaluate him next to Fields, but in any other year, Fields is QB1. I just think he's in the same class as Lawrence, which makes him QB2 this year.
If the Jaguars, which there's a lot of buzz about Urban Meyer. I mean, I would be shocked if he ever returned to coaching just based on his health situation. But if let's say the Jaguars did hire Urban Meyer, I mean, how does he just take Lawrence?
Yeah, well, he didn't recruit Fields out of high school.
So you're saying he goes with Lawrence?
Yeah, and people are making that Ohio State connection, but he was gone before Fields transferred. And I don't think Ohio State was a player for Fields, and they're a player for every top recruit in the country. He was the number 2 recruit in the country that year. So, you know, they weren't a finalist. So it's not like he was heavy in the recruitment of Fields coming out of high school or in that transfer market. So maybe he doesn't envision Fields in the same capacity other people do, but time can change it. So who knows?
Last college point, then we'll get to our quarterback carousel. Ohio State is a 7.5 point. Alabama's a 7.5 point favorite against Ohio State in the national title game. Over under 75. What's your final score?
75.
75.
Oh my god.
It's gonna be a high scoring game. It's gonna go in the 80s.
I'll take Bama and the over. Bama by 10 would be my guess. I think Ohio State can win. They're the only team in the country that can match up athlete for athlete with Alabama. And I think Justin Fields is as good, if not better, than Mac Jones. But I think the rib injury will hurt more later than it does in the immediate aftermath of that hit. Like the adrenaline, the shot, the cortisone shot he got at halftime, like that pain is it feels like an injury that hurts more in the aftermath. And I know they get 11 days off between games, but I don't know if we're going to see a fully healthy Fields against Alabama. And I don't think they can beat Alabama without a fully healthy Fields.
We'll see. I feel like that this might be an Alabama just butt whooping. But is there any consolation right when I'm usually really, really wrong on these things? But all right. So let's go to our quarterback carousel. Carson Wentz seems to be done with the Eagles. Says his reputation or his relationship with Doug Pearson is beyond repair. He signed through 2024, has set to make over $30 million each of the next 4 years. His dead cap hit next year is $59 million. I can't envision a scenario where like they find like an attractive trade partner for Carson Wentz with how much money he's making.
If they were, it'd be Indy, right? We got to be on the same page.
That's what it seems to be, just based on the Frank Reich connection, and he had his best success under Frank Reich, who seems to be like one of the best offensive masterminds. Even though the Colts missed the playoffs, right? They missed the playoffs. Oh no, the Colts made it. They made the playoffs. Seems to be one of these offensive masterminds. You see, we done Philip Rivers. Carson Wentz was at his best under him. He seems to be the sort of the mastermind behind that Eagles Super Bowl offense more so than Nick Foles, who's easily the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. But that would seem to be the most logical fit. It's just that contract is just a huge.
It's an albatross.
Yeah, it's an albatross. Yeah, I don't know how they can figure that. It's so much. It's so easy to just trade him, but like it's so much bigger than that. I'm very curious to see how that plays out because any team that takes on that contract with his injury history and his lack of success the last couple of years
would not touch it.
Yeah, so that's going to be a very fascinating storyline. Because if they cut him too, it's not like they're out of the woods either. They're still on the hook for all that money. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G ends up back in New England next year.
He
returns to his old disciple. Belichick drafted him to be Brady's replacement. He had to let him go. And if you love something, let it go. And if it comes back, it's meant to be. And Jimmy G and Bill Belichick were meant to be together. I feel actually pretty confident that even if New England drafts a quarterback this draft, a high quarterback, it'll be Jimmy G under center starting the 2021 season for the Patriots.
What about Matt Stafford?
Matt Stafford, New Orleans, the next quarterback of the Saints.
You think they just move off Jameis, Taysom Hill, no thank you. They go in a completely different direction.
I think they keep Hill as the same thing he's been. He's under contract for, I think, 3 more years. They signed to that extension. Winston was just a 1-year deal, so Winston's gone. And I don't think they could bring back Breeze and feel confident in their chances. Stafford he still has an elite arm. He's the toughest dude around, which is not saying Breeze isn't tough, but Breeze has had so much injury issues. Stafford's way more durable, and he's a veteran quarterback. And with this Saints team, they don't have a high pick. To get up and draft one of these young guys, you have to trade everything. I think it makes more sense for them to trade for a veteran quarterback. And I feel like Stafford and Sean Payton, Stafford who wants to win, he's never won. Payton who is on the precipice, whatever. He's on the precipice of winning big again. I just don't think Breeze is the quarterback to take him there. That feels like a marriage made in heaven to me.
I feel like Stafford ends up in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan and lights it up.
I have a different quarterback in San Francisco coming, so don't worry.
All right, so next guy is Sam Darnold. There's I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 potential destinations for Sam Darnold. Obviously, first one was the Jets, assuming that they go with Penei Sewell at number 2 or try to draft in Kyle Pitts or trade back, whatever they decide to do. There's a good prospect. He does remain with the Jets. I could also see him going to Pittsburgh. and
Yep.
Roethlisberger for a year and then taking over the reins of that organization. I could see him going to Washington and playing under Ron. I don't see Alex Smith as, even though they won the division, like being like that, a guy that they want under the center long term there, and especially with the injury.
He's a great backup, not a great starter.
Yes, I could also see him going to the Bears. Because the Trubisky thing is fascinating too. Because if you sign Trubisky he's like Kirk Cousins. Like there's always so I know they went 12-4 a couple of years ago, but when push comes to shove, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Mr. Trubisky as your quarterback. And then another possible destination is the Panthers, who seem to be sort of done with Teddy Bridgewater. If I had a gun in my head, where does Sam Darnold line up? I guess I have to say Pittsburgh.
I would agree with Pittsburgh. I also love the Carolina pick, and I also could see him in San Francisco. He fits that kind of dual threat, mobile enough to get out of the pocket, and I think Shanahan's really good at developing quarterbacks, getting the most out of them. But I also would say San Francisco is the one team I could see moving really high up in the draft this year to take a guy super high, maybe even as high as number 3 if Miami decides 2 is their guy moving forward, which we'll talk about in one sec. But if San Francisco is drafting at 12, next year's first and a second round pick could be enough to catapult them into the top 5 and let Shanahan take his choice of young quarterback to mold, because the rest of the roster is Super Bowl caliber right now. They just need that signal caller, Jimmy G, with the injury history and what he did in the Super Bowl. I don't feel like Kyle Shanahan's fully confident in what he can do moving forward. So one of these quarterbacks could end up there, or it would not shock me at all to see them trade up into the top 5, even the top 3 to draft a quarterback.
I don't think the 49ers are interested in a developmental guy. This team just came off the Super Bowl. They want to win now, and I think Stafford is by far their best option. They need to move hell, heaven, and earth to get Matt Stafford with that team. You saw what Shanahan did with Garoppolo. You saw what he did with Kirk Cousins. He drafted these guys who may not be that great. And Kirk Cousins, in this case, obviously isn't that great because he had an incredible offensive supporting cast. And the fact that he couldn't make the playoffs with those guys around him is pathetic. Stafford with in that system under Shanahan would be incredible. I'm telling you, he would light it up. He would be an MVP conversation.
So Stafford better fit in San Francisco or New Orleans?
I mean, both. But if I'm Shanahan and I'm inside the mind of Kyle Shanahan, I want Stafford. He's by far
can we agree he's the crown jewel of this quarterback class? Because I think he's still very good. I still think he's a very good quarterback.
He's great. He just as the Detroit multiple head coaches, the worst defense in the league, just the lack of protection, couldn't stay on the field because he kept getting hit all the time. I think you can put him in San Francisco. That is his best op. I mean, they're in New Orleans, obviously. But if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm a madman going after Matt Stafford.
He's the guy I think you want if you're in the hunt for a quarterback. He is the crown jewel of this class.
Is Cam Newton on a team next year?
So I answered that question with no, but with the caveat, I think he could be a backup in San Francisco if they decide to draft a quarterback young.
Cam is so finished. I mean, he can't.
But yeah, he's not a starting quarterback.
He's on. He is. The reason why I lean towards no is because he's got so much pride. I just can't see him like being enthusiastic about sitting on the bench for a year, or however long he's going to be on the bench. He's got so much pride. I think he'd rather retire than be a backup. If
Chicago brings back Trubisky, would he go to Chicago in a training camp battle with Trubisky? That's the only place I could possibly see it.
No, I mean, I guess I won't put nothing past the Bears, but Trubisky can battle, and that inspires.
I'm just saying it's the only scenario I could think of where that's even a remote possibility.
All right, so now we're talking about Tua. So Dolphins missed the playoffs. It was the win and basically your in game against the Bills, and they gave up 56 points. Tua, I almost feel like I know it's only his rookie year, and he's got so much more time ahead of him. But the way Brian Flores handled that situation, the way that kept going to Fitzpatrick, and Tua 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, like he may have just ended up being a bust. I mean, I hate to like write a guy off after just that many starts, but seeing how great Herbert looked with the Chargers, I was actually surprised. I mean, Anthony was a terrible coach, so in the grand scheme of things, it's probably the right move to try to get someone in there who is a little more on the ball when it comes to like decisions and doesn't lose by 45 points to the atrocious Patriots. That's probably in the grand scheme of things a good move, even though they won 4 straight games to end the season. But Tua just didn't inspire. He never really had like a moment where like, wow, that dude, wow, he's got a tremendous future. He never really had like, I mean, I guess the Kyler Murray game maybe, but after that, never really did anything. I feel like the Dolphins may regret a lot taking Tua over Herbert.
Yeah, a couple of things. A, if Miami thinks that any of the quarterbacks available at 3 are better than Tua, take the quarterback and don't think twice about it. I think with Brian Flores is a really good head coach, a good defense. Like this team will never be picky in that position again. And you could have a great team, and if you don't have a good quarterback, it doesn't matter. So if you think any of the quarterbacks at 3 are better than Tua, trade Tua for a second-round pick, take your lumps, and move on with a new guy. That's first. Second off, I have no freaking clue what Chan Gailey's doing with some of these play calls for Tua. It feels like they're, all right, Tua, this is what you do well. We're going to call everything that you don't do well. And they consistently put him in these situations where you're like, that play call made no sense whatsoever. Why'd they call it? And then 2 plays later, they called the exact same thing. Third thing with Tua, and this is not my point. I wish I remember who I saw this from. Tua is used to throwing to guys who are Alabama open. In the NFL, you're never Alabama open, and he won't throw unless you're Alabama open, and that's why he just consistently dinks and dunks it the entire game. He was throwing to Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, who had 5-6 yards of separation on every route, and it's easy to complete passes like that. In the NFL, you're never that open, and he's just not pulling the trigger on those tight windows, which you need to win football games against good teams.
So going off that point, and this is, I think, something people aren't looking closely enough when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. The ACC is just an atrocity of a football conference. They are terrible, and Trevor Lawrence feasted on them during his time at Clemson, just beating up on Florida State and NC State, and I know North Carolina came on a little bit this year, and they got Notre Dame this year, but like in the grand scheme of things, that conference when it comes to football is a joke. Like the SEC is a gauntlet. The ACC is like pathetic. Like Clemson may never lose that as long as Dabo Swinney is coaching that team. That you could pretty much bet your life savings on them every single year to win that conference, and they will win that conference because Dabo Swinney's got that much of an edge over every single team in that conference. And you talk about the Alabama thing, like that's what Trevor Lawrence had there. Like the guys on Clemson are so much better than everyone else in the ACC, and it's not particularly close. And I think that's something people aren't really taking that much into account when evaluating Trevor Lawrence is the competition that he faced on a week in, week out basis. And it's a little like, are people missing something here?
No, because he played great against Alabama in the national championship as a true freshman.
2 or 3 years ago. Like that, every big game he's played since, he's choked. He got rolled by LSU last year. He lost to freaking Ohio State, who barely beat Northwestern. But
the Ohio State team, we all knew if they had played a good game, were the second or third most talented team in the country.
Dabo had them 11th. I thought Clemson was going to destroy them. I thought they were going to rip their heads off and win like 49-14. Yeah, I thought Clemson was going to destroy them, and they couldn't even do it against them. I'm just saying, like, you talk about the Alabama effect with Tua.
It is true.
Why wouldn't there be something similar with Trevor Lawrence? I know that Alabama game 3 years ago is probably an outlier. That was also a long time ago. And
Can I offer one possible counterpoint here? And I haven't sat through and watched all the tape, but Tua, because I watched a ton of tape before they played A&M last year, he didn't throw into tight windows though, because they had so many dudes. He only threw to guys that were wide smack open. And once again, I have not seen, even in that Ohio State game, Lawrence tries to throw guys open. The touchdown late to Powell, he threw it before he broke. And Powell had a great route and then ended up scoring from like 8 yards out. But he let that ball go under pressure before it broke. Tua, from the stuff I've seen, either throws that ball away or is already on a different progression as soon as the guy's not wide open. So I'm not saying that with the utmost confidence. I have not seen it all, but that I think is something to look at when you evaluate the quarterback strength, because you're probably going to watch some of this tape to figure out who you want at number 2. See if they're at least attempting throws to throw guys open into windows that aren't there yet, or if they're just simply taking, my guy's better than your cornerback. I'm going to hold and stare down one receiver for 10 seconds till Jerry Jeudy does 6 circles around the defensive back and is 20 yards wide open.
I mean, it literally seemed like every throw Mac Jones makes, someone is wide open, like literally wide open.
And that's the point. Like Alabama's offense the last couple of years has been so good that he doesn't have to make tough throws. And Lawrence is definitely part of that. Fields is definitely part of that too, because Ohio State's so much better than the rest of the Big Ten.
But then you see what he did against Clemson, and it's like, holy crap, that was a big stage, 6 touchdowns against a team that I thought they were going to get destroyed by, and then he goes out there and plays like that.
But you can also say that you can say the same thing last year when he didn't play great against Clemson, though. So he had a good game and a big game and a bad game and a big game. So we will see, Frank. But they're both good. They're both really, 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 really good. And if the Jets get either one, it's a major upgrade at quarterback.
You think a major upgrade over Darnold for Justin Fields? Major upgrade?
Potential-wise, yes.
You think so? Overall, let's say Darnold was just coming out of USC. You say Justin Fields is just coming out of Ohio State. Same year, Fields would be ahead of Darnold.
I feel like Fields would be ahead of Baker Mayfield had he come out in that draft. He would have been QB1 in that draft. Yes, I think Fields would have been QB1 in that draft.
Really?
And I'll look. Whatever you do your next thing, I'll look up what Tom McShay has grades, what his grade is for those guys, just to see how they would compare. So, what's your next point? You want to talk picks?
I was gonna do. All right, well, let's look at the wild card games real quick.
You go out, do your wild card stuff. I'm looking up McShay grades.
All right, so the wild card set. Game 1 is Colts Bills. Bills are favored by 7 at home. Bills seem to be on a mission right now. Just the way they played against Miami, they only played the Stars in the first half and put up 56 points. I think the Bills are a lock to win that game, and I'd say they cover that 7 pretty comfortably. Phillip Rivers, this is his last hurrah. I think the Colts would be wise to go in a different direction next year at quarterback. Rams Seahawks is fascinating because Jared Goff, if he does play, he's going to be at 60% tops. If you can't grip a football because of that thumb surgery, to say that you have confidence in the guy is pretty shaky grounds. Seahawks only favored by 4.5, even though they may have to go back to John Wolford. That's a weird line because the Seahawks could absolutely destroy them. But at the same time, that Rams defense is a terrible matchup for the Seahawks because Ramsey could shut down Metcalf. Aaron Donald can control the running game, and then if you can get pressure on Russ and make him uncomfortable, that defense for the Rams is the reason why they could stay in that game, which is I'm passing on. I'm not betting on that game. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Can I catch up real quick?
Sure.
You did.
I did Colts. I think the Bills dominate the Colts. I'm staying away from Rams Seahawks. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay, I think Bills win, but it'll be closer. I think Indy can control the clock with Jonathan Taylor, who's running the ball really well right now.
One of the most fascinating things I heard. Do you know who finished third? All right, the top 3 rushers in the NFL this season. Number 1 is obviously Derrick Henry. Number 2
is Dalvin Cook, and then Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor was there. That's incredible. He missed he got the.
He had 250 in the final game of the year to jump 12 people, but
he was they benched him for a little bit. I mean, the fact that he finished third in rushing is unbelievable. He may be a first round fantasy pick next year. First round pick.
How many 1,000-yard rushers were there this year?
I have no idea.
It's got to be less than 5 or 6, right?
I don't care.
All right. Well, I'm with you. I'll staying away from Seattle Rams. I think Seattle wins, but Rams keep it close. I don't know if Goff's playing or not, and that may be a good thing or a bad thing. So
Buccaneers are favored by 8 at Washington.
Bucs are going to smoke them.
This is the worst matchup ever for Brady. I mean, that defensive line is going to wreak havoc against him. I think the Buccaneers win 20-17, which is why the under is probably the best play there. But Chase Young is going to have an absolute field day just going after Brady, play after play after play. That this is a terrible matchup for the Buccaneers.
I agree, but I think Washington's offense is so bad that they'll still cover despite not having a good offense. I could see this being 24-10 or something like that. But I can't see Washington winning the game. The under is absolutely the play here. I agree with that.
And hopefully it keeps trickling up because I believe it opened at 46 now and went up a half a point. So hopefully it keeps trending up because the under seems to be the best play there. Ravens minus 3.5 at the Titans. This to me is a complete toss-up. This to me is the best chance the Ravens will have had in the Lamar Jackson era to win a postseason game. But the Titans have that pedigree. They made the AFC title game last year. Derrick Henry is unstoppable. If the Ravens fall behind, the Titans win that game. I think whoever scores first wins this game.
Finish. Sorry.
Yeah, whoever scores first wins. the Ravens are sort of like the trendier team right now because they've played so great, even though they haven't beaten great teams. I would stay away from this game too, but I think I'm not comfortable betting on like picking a team before I see who scores first. Once I see who scores that first touchdown, that's who wins the game.
I think Titans win straight up. I would go Titans money line here. They're not scared of Baltimore. And I think Baltimore has that intimidation factor with a lot of teams in the league where, Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, they're going to run all over us. Tennessee does not care. And Tennessee can dish it right back in its own right with Derrick Henry. And I think last year's postseason game where they forced Lamar Jackson to throw the ball and Lamar Jackson proved he couldn't is in one way a help to Baltimore, but also I think it plays into Tennessee's favor. I think Baltimore is going to try and prove once again, we know what Tennessee's going to do to stop our run game and what we're going to have to do passing-wise to win. I just don't trust Lamar Jackson to do what he knows he has to do. Until he shows me it, I will not bet on them in the postseason. And I think I'm actually going to put a nice unit on Tennessee to win the money line here.
Well, yeah. I mean, but if Baltimore gets a lead, though, I think that they win that game. So we'll see. At the end of the day, that's a toss-up. My favorite pick of the week is the Saints -9.5 against the Bears. I think the Saints absolutely just destroy them.
Agreed. No argument. Agreed.
And then Browns-Steelers is fascinating, too, because you saw Pittsburgh, the way they finished the season, talk about, limping into the playoffs. No one is limping into the playoffs like the Steelers. The amount of injuries on the offensive side of the ball, how old Roethlisberger has looked. You can't be feeling great at all if you're a Steelers fan. On the other side, the Browns, they're riding as high as they've ever been. It's curious, though, that they only beat Mason Rudolph and having all those guys out by 2 points.
They were up 24-9 though in the fourth quarter.
Either way, Steelers are 4-point favorites. I don't feel comfortable with this game either. If I had to make
the dogs,
I guess I would go with the Steelers. Pittsburgh, I think Roethlisberger is going to wake up for this game. Juju's not dancing anymore, and Baker I don't think is ready for that spotlight in a primetime game.
I could not disagree more, dude. I think Baker lives for these kind of moments. I really think
about Baker. Take a break. For these moments.
I know. I do. Listen, Baker plays with a massive chip on his shoulder. This whole Browns team, some of these dudes weren't alive the last time the Browns made the playoffs. This is a hungry team. I think Kevin Stefanski is your coach of the year for what he's done. And in the playoffs, if you're asking, what do I trust more? Cleveland's running game or Big Ben's right arm? It's Cleveland's running game by a landslide. So in a question of whose offense do I think can produce more in cold, bad weather, I'm going with Cleveland, and I think they win. I mean, I'll pick them straight up and put some money on them too.
Why don't you do your little parlay? Browns money line with Titans money line. There's your bet.
What are the odds?
I'll tally it up right now.
And while you do that, I'll tell you the draft grades. So McShay has not updated his draft grades since the Big Ten championship game, where he dropped Justin Fields from number 2 overall to number 9 overall on his prospect big board. And he dropped him from a 93 grade to a 91. So that was after back-to-back bad performances. I'm curious to see what his grade looks like after the 6-touchdown Sugar Bowl dominant win and performance. But the 91 grade would rank 3rd. And I'll double check. I got the 2018 class here, but Sam Darnold had a 94 grade. Josh Rosen had a 92 grade.
And so it's irrelevant. It's basically
So Darnold technically was the better prospect, but this is an incomplete grade on Justin Fields. This was not his final grade. This is a grade after back-to-back bad weeks. So technically, in McShay's eyes, Darnold had a higher ceiling.
So the odds for Titans money line, Browns money line, plus 698.
I actually love that. I love that.
I mean,
I love that.
I mean, yeah, if you're looking for tremendous value, that is certainly the bet to make. Real quick before we go, the Nets, they're 3-4. I watched that game yesterday. I didn't really care if I watch my team over, I'll watch a Yankee game or a Net game over like a big football game any day of the week. But the Nets lost to the freaking Wizards, 123-122. Kyrie had a wide open 3 at the buzzer, missed. They got the rebound, and then Durant had a gimme 10-footer that he makes probably 99 of 100 times and missed it. this Nets team, I mean, they lost to the Hawks, Hornets, Wizards, and Grizzlies. They had Jeff Green playing crunch time minutes. I mean, I hope this team is able to sort of find a groove here and find a rhythm. But the first 2 games were great. They killed the Warriors, and then they absolutely humiliated the Celtics. But since then, they're 1-4.
Losing Dinwiddie hurts.
Don't give me like Spencer Dinwiddie is like the difference between this team being a championship contender and not.
I'm not saying that, but you go through an entire training camp with that as your starting 5. Now you switch it up. The rotations are a little different.
1 month.
The truth is Kevin Durant looks healthy, and that's all that matters right now. That is all that matters right now. And to overreact in any capacity is a waste of energy, Frank. I know you like getting mad at things. There's no need to get mad yet. Be patient. Trust the process. Kevin Durant's healthy, and we are in good hands.
But the issue isn't scoring. They can't get any stops. They lost the game because they couldn't get a freaking offensive rebound because they're playing Jeff Green at center in crunch time, and the Wizards got these 2 7-footers just getting every rebound. They didn't
Where was
lose.
Jared Allen? I did not see the game.
They had him on the bench for Jeff Green. They were playing small ball.
Do not agree with that at all.
It was a very questionable coaching decision. Steve Nash feels like he was a little maybe overmatched a little bit in the early going, but hopefully the Nets do end up like. Listen, I guess in the grand scheme of things, like to expect this team to just take off immediately was a little
premature,
unfair. Yeah, so like give them like a month to like get their feet wet, and then we'll see where they are in a couple weeks. But not a great start for the Nets. Listen, they're going to be a playoff team. Just have everyone healthy for the playoffs, I guess is sort of the mindset. But I like to see them going a little groove here, like make a little bit of a statement. But when you give up, 145 points to the Hawks.
I agree. Not a great look. Not a great look.
You lose to the freaking like the Hornets. Like, give me a break. The Grizzlies with John Morant missing like the second half of that game. I know Kyrie and Durant didn't play that game. It's just not a great start in the grand scheme of things. They better freaking turn it around because I just want a fun, exciting Nets team for once. Like, I never really had it in a really long time.
I will say this: the Nets have beaten the best teams they've played and lost to the bad teams they've played, which shows me they have that switch, which is a dangerous line to live on. But it seems like they've gotten up for the games that they've had to, perform better, and they've kind of laid down when it's not. So it's early. I would not worry about it, and Durant looks healthy. So for that, breathe out and relax.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. You know where to find us: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, me at Lucas Frankel, him at Cags_Lucas. See you guys next week, everybody.